We have direct insights from Donald Trump's cryptocurrency election, and David Sachs, the crypto commissioner, confirms that a Bitcoin tsunami is about to roll in on us. We're looking at what's happening there because Michael Saylor and Donald Trump have met. There were a lot of expectations. Donald Trump has launched his Bitcoin, but there were also some exciting background movements happening that we're looking at. Also, we're actually seeing the CDU and CSU advocating for more regulation here. And they also confirm that they are clearly promoting regulation here. So they want to further restrict Bitcoin here. And they even equate that with freedom and innovation. So you think that by regulating Bitcoin more here, you're doing here what's for the freedom of Bitcoin users. And right now, there are some very heated discussions going on. Why the CDU is now even openly admitting here that they want to further promote the regulation of Bitcoin here and sell the whole thing to us as freedom. We also have a hot take from the Bundesbank comparing Bitcoin to tulip mania. The Bundesbank probably doesn't seem to get it here, that Bitcoin is a technology that has come to stay and is now afraid for the status quo. And accordingly, they're fighting against Bitcoin here. But first, we're actually taking a look at the crypto scene here in the USA. What's going on here? There were a lot of expectations here. What's going to happen at the crypto scene? Actually, I did a lot of digging. I looked into it. Okay, are there any meetings between Donald Trump and Michael Saylor? Are there any photos? I didn't find a single photo. If you have anything, feel free to post it down below. I didn't find that the two of them exchanged any words with each other. A lot of people were speculating about that. If Michael Saylor and Donald Trump are both at an event together, then they must be exchange. It could also be that they did it kind of secretly. But normally it's like this, that when you have such official meetings, then you post some photos afterward and say, hey, cool. We just had this awesome conversation, or whatever. But there are actually no photos here, and that's why a lot of people are feeling a bit let down again. Because all that's happening here is that some kind of meme coin is being launched. And here, the meeting between Michael Saylor and Donald Trump might not have even happened, because both Donald Trump and Michael Saylor have always been advocates for the Bitcoin reserve strategy. And now it would have been awesome to have them here. The Ultra Bitcoin Maxi and Donald Trump brought together. But maybe it happened behind the scenes, to bring together both the Ultra Bitcoin Maxi and Donald Trump here. But maybe it happened in the background. You also don't want to, let's say, set the expectations too high. That's also what some people are still focusing on and speculating about. They say, okay, hey, Donald Trump launched. Here's a Bitcoin and stuff. With that, he's lowering the expectations for the strategic Bitcoin reserve even more. And he wants to kind of downplay everything here, that not so many people are front-running the whole story here. But we actually have here, regardless of the meeting, a massive statement from Donald Trump's crypto advisor here, David Sachs, who actually confirms here, live at the event, that there will be a Bitcoin tsunami here. So there's going to be a massive wave of innovation and a Bitcoin and crypto wave coming our way. We're going to check out the clip in a second. I also looked further, if there are any other clips here, but there were relatively few clips here. There weren't any talks or interviews or anything like that, if I saw it right. But listen in here, what David Sachs, Donald Trump's crypto advisor, had to say. The reign of terror against crypto is over. And the beginning of innovation in America for crypto has just begun. 2001. So he basically says the reign of terror against cryptocurrencies is over, and the innovations in the field of cryptocurrencies have just begun in America. So here's a very, very bullish statement. He definitely says that things are really going to kick off now. And that's also what a lot of people are speculating about, that the year 2025 could really be very, very wild. But it's not just about Bitcoin. It's really about the entire crypto market as a whole. And basically, what the SEC has messed up over the last few years. Now they want to approach the Trump administration differently. So they're probably going to massively roll back the crypto regulation here. And the crypto commissioner confirms that too. And that's basically a very, very positive sign, because this guy is really responsible for organizing all this crypto stuff here, to really coordinate the regulation and all these, let's say, things. And of course, if he is ultra bullish here, then we can assume so. That there's really a massive Bitcoin, crypto, whatever, tsunami rolling our way, which is also pretty much set to bring more all-time highs, not just for Bitcoin, but in the entire crypto space. Although we do have to be a bit critical here, because some voices are saying now, for example, HEY, they've lost focus on Bitcoin here. I always say, hey, focus on Bitcoin. Yeah, go ahead and do some Bitcoin on the side. I don't want to forbid you from doing that or something like that, but just keep your focus on Bitcoin. And what's slowly becoming clear is that the focus might not actually be on Bitcoin. But the focus here is actually partly on some Bitcoin and some meme coins and so on. And a lot of people are already feeling anxious about that there's going to be another real shitcoin rally, and then a lot of people are going to get rug pulled again. And a lot of people are going to lose a lot of money again, because they're just throwing all their money into some meme coins. Or maybe forgetting that Bitcoin is actually the flagship here, and not here, some Bitcoin, some gamble tokens, or something like that. I also read a really interesting perspective on that by Florian Kassler, who is also here. He's a Spiegel bestseller author, along with Mark Friedrich. He writes here, final email starting in 2025, Drumcoin could now be the starting signal for a few weeks, months, of unrestrained speculation in the markets, similar to 1999-2000. So here's the dot-com bubble. Every scam pumps up to billions, followed by a gigantic rug pull like in 2001. Sorry, I mixed it up. 1999, 2000 was basically the big run-up, so a massive increase. 2001 was then here, basically. The big one their combat wants, which then burst here, and Florian Kassler is now actually comparing it here. And he says that something similar to what happened with combat could threaten us here, because the SEC isn't really pushing back anymore, not regulating at all. And now basically any rug pull coin, any scam coin, any meme coin can just be dumped onto the market. And of course, a lot of investors are going to get scammed. And everyone thinks, okay, it just keeps going up, because there's a real wave of euphoria coming. And then at some point, there will be a crash. And then he says here, this bust will also drag down high-quality assets like Bitcoin or stocks, strong companies. The difference is you will recover, Drumcoin, Bitcoin, or Ripple will lose. 100%. So this is Florian Kassler's prediction that Bitcoin. Here too, it will be dragged down when this bubble bursts, so then we'll have the new shitcoin bubble, or whatever you want to call it. And Bitcoin will recover, maybe 1, 2, 3, or 4 other big cryptocurrencies. But most of them are just going to crash to zero. That's basically the big warning. It doesn't have to turn out that way, but definitely, here's a warning from Florian Kassler that you should definitely take. Seriously, at least that's my assessment. But on the other hand, that also means that Bitcoin and all cryptocurrencies are being pulled up massively. And that means the next thing that's coming isn't the downfall, but the next thing that's coming. As David Sachs says, the crypto commissioner, a massive tsunami is rolling towards us, a huge melt-up, and eventually this melt-up will come to an end, and then you really have to make sure you don't get rug pulled. And then something really interesting happened here. So there was a donation from Bitpanda to various parties, and it totaled 1-something million. Here, each gets 500,000. Euros are supposed to go to the CDU, SPD, and FDP, 250,000 to the CSU. So in total here, 1.75 million. And then Stefan Berger from the CDU posted this. The CDU supports the freedom of mining, unlike the Red-Green Coalition, who want to ban mining and proof of work. Our party was a driver of the MiCA and advocates for clear rules, freedom and innovation. And now check this out, he basically confirms that the CDU is clear that they stand firmly behind the MiCA regulation. And the MiCA regulation means massive bureaucracy. The MiCA regulation means that Europe is now at a significant competitive disadvantage compared to the U.S. Because just like we went through everything earlier, David Sachs and the US, they're really pushing down the crypto regulation and Bitcoin regulation. And what is Europe doing? They're ramping up the entire MiCA regulation and all the regulations here in the Eurozone. And the CDU is even selling it to us as freedom. They're ramping up the entire MiCA regulation and all the regulations here in the Eurozone. And the CDU is even selling it to us as freedom and as innovation. But what's going to happen now is that the EU is going to fall way behind. Not just when it comes to freedom, but also regarding innovation. Because what happens? All these companies, of course, aren't going to the EU where there's the MiCA licensing, but they're going to countries where there aren't such strict regulations. For example, in El Salvador, that's where Tether is going, and other big companies are heading there too. Or here, for example, in Paraguay, there's no regulation at all. What do you think? Why do so many people, for example, here in Paraguay, get a cédula? So you need proof of residence or proof of living here in Paraguay. You can do that pretty easily here. I've done that here too. In the end, it's just done for that. To be able to register on exchanges outside the EU, because you have proof of residence. You can say, hey, I live here in Paraguay, and so on. And here in Paraguay, there's also no data exchange with the EU, and so on. That means more and more people are looking for options here. Plan B solutions. They want out of the EU. They're fed up to do some Satoshi tests here. They're fed up with everything being overregulated here. That's IT. Wherever, there's KYC, whatever. For example, here in Paraguay, you can buy up to 10,000 euros or 9,999. Converted to euros. You can buy KYC Bitcoin here and stuff. Why can't you do something like that in the EU? And the CDU is basically selling this to us as a good thing, that there's such crazy regulation here, and blah, blah, blah. In my opinion, this is absolute bullshit. And equating regulation here with freedom isn't really smart either. And the savvy investors, the smart companies, and so on, they just go to El Salvador, they go to the USA, or for all I care, to Paraguay, or wherever else they decide to go, or whatever, wherever they go, but definitely not in the EU. Joanna Coda also commented on the whole thing and says, "Our party was the driving force behind Mika and advocates for clear rules." So there, she's basically quoting Mr. Berger here. I wouldn't be promoting that. So she clearly says that it's actually nonsense to promote this here. But the CDU seems to understand it this way, that more regulation and more surveillance, more control, and so on, that this is a sign of freedom. You can really see what trip they're on. Bitcoin in the Bundestag even says, "Dear Mr. Stefan Berger," just because the CDU and CSU accept donation money. You can't seriously stand there and say that you're for freedom, while the CDU and CSU are demanding the opposite in the Bundestag. And Mika is a disaster for privacy and Bitcoin startups, just like I already pointed out in the end. He refers to June 25th, 2024, when the CDU submitted a questionable proposal to regulate Bitcoin under the guise of money laundering. They aim to push for more Bitcoin regulation, basically to further regulate Bitcoin under the pretext of money laundering. And what do I know? They wanted to further restrict Bitcoin here, right? Just restrict it. This was about that. The CDU is really going for it and is bringing their already announced proposal tomorrow. Consistently combat money laundering as well as terrorism and extremist financing. So here Bitcoin is basically being framed in the context of terrorism, extremist financing, and so on. And that's basically what's happening behind the scenes. Up front, they say, yeah, we're promoting freedom here. And here you can really get it. Crazy comments. I can read you a few of them. For example, someone writes here, Mosport says, Mika is massively harming the European location. Too much bureaucracy and unnecessary costs for all businesses and startups that want to settle in the Bitcoin space. Strengthen all the regions with less bureaucracy outside the EU. Classic short-sighted conservative politics. Or here, it's nice that the CDU is taking responsibility for the bureaucratic regulatory monster called Mika. History will show to what extent Mika is more of a hindrance than a driving force. The music is playing somewhere else. I'm not so sure about the freedom either. And that's the next thing here. Then someone else writes, Mika is not a crypto-friendly law. It puts everyone under general suspicion, costs a ton of money, and stifles crypto development in the EU. It just doesn't work for them. Nothing about what people do with their money. And that's basically the big problem, that basically everyone is put under general suspicion. And that's why it's really great to be in countries like here in Paraguay, where you see the complete opposite here. In Paraguay, there isn't even a registration office. So I may be registered as a resident here or something, but nobody even knows where I'm actually registered, because there isn't even a registration office. And there's no data exchange either. Neither from banks nor with any crypto representatives or anything like that, with the EU or whatever. So what you do here is you sign up at an exchange and you can provide any address you want, because they can't check it anyway, because there isn't a registration office like a residency registration or anything like that. That means you can be anonymous here in relation to the country. You can also operate here in relation to Europe and other countries outside of Paraguay. And that obviously gives people a lot more freedom, because in my opinion, Bitcoin and crypto usage should somehow happen here. In the best case scenario, it should happen anonymously. But when we have regulatory monsters like in the EU, it just gets harder and harder to ensure your anonymity and privacy here. But completely independent of that, we had the head of the central bank here who actually compared Bitcoin to a tulip bubble. There was a new interview with him, and then he compared Bitcoin to tulips here, which is obviously nonsense. But what about here? Show it again. That the classic financial system is really starting to panic here. It's slowly happening because Bitcoin is just gaining traction here. If you want to buy Bitcoin, I'll put a link down below for you. 21 Bitcoin. The easiest way to buy Bitcoin here in Europe. With the code Bitcoin, you can still get up to 20% off the fees when buying Bitcoin. See you later. See you later. Peace out.